the universe? Is that rewriting your genes? How do you do it?
The first thing is you have to start being aware of your consciousness. And this is the stuff that goes on in your head, and you're talking to yourself at the stoplight while the car is waiting, and you have to be there. Or even while you're driving down the street, you're not paying attention. Okay, now I'm in drive. Now you're going 42 and 40. You don't pay attention to that. You have thoughts going on.
Yeah.
Now just so that people recognize that this is going on in everybody's head all the time.
Okay.
And the issue about this is, so what are the dialogues of these thoughts? And the reason is because this is internal talk. And who are you talking to? Well, you say I'm clearing stuff through my mind. Yeah, but your mind is connected to every one of your cells. So that this talk that we don't pay any attention to is ultimately, especially if it becomes redundant talk that repeats itself over and over and over again, will materialize that result. Because we are like then Dustin Hoffman doing Willy Loman every day, saying the same words.
I'm a sick, dejected failure. And then I'm a sick, dejected failure, and then your body says, okay, sick, dejected failures, are in a lot of pain, and they're sick, and they're dying.
And guess what? And what they'll do is make sure that as you're almost trying to succeed, you will make a mistake. Why? Because you have to. If you don't make a mistake, then you're out of sync with your belief system.
Oh, I see.
And so that you will jeopardize your own project, your own work, if you don't believe that you can do it, because what you're going to have to do is become, coherent with your belief. And if you become successful, you can't have that belief. So therefore, something has to change. And the first thing that has to change is the belief, because the body will always first conform to the belief. And if you change the belief, then the body will change to the new one.
Well, it seems to me, Bruce, that if you're on a downward spiral and you really, your cells should just sit you down and have a talking to, saying, hey, there's life all around you. Let's invite some of it in. Let's be joyful.
Well,
look at this miracle of life.
You can hear yourself talking, and you can detach from the moment. This is very simple, and this is very truthful, because this is me now. This happened to me.
Okay.
When I started to recognize what we're talking about.
Yeah, which was how long ago?
Well, it first became apparent, so the thing hit me hard in 1985, and for the first few years, all I did was talk about it to people because it was academic, and I realized at some point was I kept telling people, if you really understood this, you'd have this great control over your life, and you'd be healthy and powerful and whatever, and they looked at me sort of like, you don't look like a great example of a guy who knows this stuff, and I realized at some point, because I never applied it to my life, all I did was academically repeat it to other people.
Oh, I see. You never internalized it.
If consciousness is, I'm telling them how consciousness controls all this stuff, but if I don't ever at any moment say, so what is my consciousness saying? If I don't ever ask that, I'll never be able to be a participant in fixing my consciousness, right?
Right. So you have to be your own walking advertisement for the truth of what you're saying.
Yeah, well, actually, what happened was when I heard myself virtually say to some audience, do as I say, not as I do, I realized, then I have no right to stand up here and even talk to these people about this stuff.
Yeah.
And I decided personally right at that moment, I will not lecture on this again until I actually try out what I've been talking about for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the part that began the process. And interestingly enough, in my own personal life, I was somewhat of a manic depressive. And psychologically, I guess if I'd gone to some official guy who was taking notes, he may have marked me down as that at some point. And so, as you were talking about, what if you start to go in a downward spiral? I did that. I did that to a point frequently at some time, And when I started to apply this, I was checking in on my consciousness. What am I saying? That's every now and then. It's like, what are you saying? Stand back and listen.
Yeah.
Well, I started listening to this myself, arguing with myself about my abilities or whatever, and it was a downward spiral. It was getting worse. And all of a sudden, in this moment of detachment, I said, what are you saying to yourself? And listen to it. And I just stopped to pause consciously and say, what is it? And I heard myself saying all these negative things, and I got so upset with myself. I said, listen, in this detached moment, I said to myself, is there anything better to do than to listen to this in my consciousness? So I said, sure. I just questioned myself, well, what would you think is more fun to do than listen to this? And immediately I said, let's go to a movie. So I stopped what I did and got into the idea of getting to the movie, got to the movies and enjoyed the movie. And guess what? By the time the movie was over, I realized I made a disconnect. I no longer was in that discussion anymore.
Uh-huh.
And then the interesting part was that stopped the spiral. Well, the next time I started to go down, this little warning bell came on and said, remember what you did the last time? And it was, what? Oh, do something different. Go and do something enjoyable. Don't listen to this. And this little warning light came on earlier and earlier, and now, wonderfully enough, I am no longer manic depressive. I got rid of the depressive end. Now I'm just manic all the time, you know? Why? Because my body already knows the cue, the consciousness cue changed to the belief and then changed the outcome.
Right. You got back in the driver's seat.
Absolutely, because I let the dialogue run my show, and that's what I was trying to say to, the people out there. You are at that stoplight, and you are running dialogue through your head. Boy, if you could listen to that, what psychiatrists and psychologists tell us, that 70% of that dialogue is negative and redundant.
Right.
Well, first of all, that's not good, because that's giving us negative potentials that we might want to realize. Redundant is the bad part, because thoughts that are redundant repeat themselves to the point they become habit.
Right, you're just etching in a whole rut there.
And then the body will then make a physical reflection of that belief, so it conforms to the habit, because it likes habit. Because once you do habit, you don't have to think about it again. It will automatically do that.
Habit. Yeah.
So the body loves to form habits because it takes less consciousness to be involved. And unfortunately, the habits that we learned, mostly were learned prenatal development, through perinatal development, through childhood, and actually by 4 or 5, you really have the kind of habits that are going to shape the rest of your life until you do some conscious decision-making and say, I do not want to do this habit again. But then it's not just saying it. You actually have to change the habit.
How do you do that?
It's just words, and that's why the first few years, when I was lecturing, they were always words, but they never hit me into, I knew all the answers. I just never applied it.
So other than stopping a downward spiral of negative self-talk, what else did you do to put this into practice?
Well, I just apply it in every aspect of my life, and basically I start to recognize that my thoughts actually are vibrations that my physical body will then conform to. So basically, is to be just aware of your thoughts. I stopped making judgments, which was probably a big part of my life. Why? Because I'm making, some decision about people outside of my own self, and I'm projecting that information. And the physics, which is a part of the research that changed my whole life, always talks about what the vibration that goes out. You become resonant to it. You absorb it as well. If you're sending it out, you also absorb it. So basically, what you're sending out, you're also returning to yourself. Right. And so the bottom line was, I really started to make sure if I was sending something out, it better be nice.
Positive.
It better be kind, and it better be fun, and as a result of that, it becomes very helpful, because guess what? Then the negative nature they're not coming up in my consciousness.
I see. These you filled it up with more fun, positive, like
more fun, positive things, and then guess what? My body conforms to that. My life walks along. Things fall out of the sky. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. And I used to be the biggest pessimist in the world. And basically, and it's interesting because my 2 daughters, I have 2 daughters, and now standing back in history and watching how they've grown up, I've seen a real interesting phenomenon, because one of them was more like my original earlier self, in my head, working everything out by details. Like I'm going to, through rational thought, create a wonderful life. The other daughter just lived with her heart open, that life was nice already, and that things will always be nice, and so it didn't take any thought. Okay. She's the one that had more happiness and success. The other one was always fighting to get there. I see. And all of a sudden I started realizing, because what all this change brought about for me, the scientist who was up in my head, was all this mechanical stuff, and I realized at some point, as we talked about it, it's a reflection of the vibration. Right. And the vibration you can feel in your heart. And if it's a good vibration, everything will work smoothly and wonderfully. You don't even have to think about it. That's the beautiful part. You don't have to go into the details to fix yourself up. All you have to really do is get the vibration smooth, and the rest of the system will coordinate to that. It's interesting, too, the heart as its own mechanism and the seed of consciousness and the joy here. And the Heart Math Institute's researchers have told us that, the heart is one of those broadcast channels that the rest of the cells tune to, and the heart itself, I conjectured, was tuned to the heart of the universe. So that maybe that's where a lot of this flow of higher consciousness
step through the system.
Actually, this is in talking with people at HeartMath. This is one thing that I think we sort of agreed at some level is this heart is this very powerful transmitter. It's beating electromagnetic energies that can be read meters away from the body. That's so much intensity to it, and it's a carrier. So the idea is, if you put thoughts and overlay that, they'll be carried and magnified by the powerful nature of the heart. So if our thoughts are incoherent with our heart, then we send incoherent energy throughout the rest of the body.
Yep. So,
and everything is so simple, and yet we want to look for all the great complexities of it, and it really comes down to this.
Well, we need those complexities to undo the wrong thinking, don't we?
Well, in some sense, the complexities have led us to that wrong thinking as well. But ultimately, to undo it, we have to undo it with an understanding of the complexities, and that part was, very instrumental in my own personal transformation, because I was not a spiritual person. I didn't believe in any of this stuff.
Oh, because
I was a
you were a
laboratory guy. I was
scientist.
doing cells and genes and molecules, and I was a machine guy,
But you were smart enough to start listening and applying your observations. And just talking with you, your enthusiasm is infectious. Your joy is infectious. So,
well, if you
it's
can wake
silly
up
out
and
of you, Bruce.
recognize that you actually do have power, and the answer is yes, you bet you do. You've had it all the time, but you let other people tell you what you should think. And if you think what they tell you, then you're not using your power. You're just exercising what they told you.
Right.
And that's our education process, unfortunately. Because
what time did we do it?
If we would have gotten a better start off from the very beginning, more like Aboriginal children.
Okay, how are Aboriginal? Oh, Paul's telling me we have to break. So, thanks so much, Bruce, and we'll come back and talk some more. You can listen the next time that Bruce will be on. Check your listings at lauralee.com, the upcoming page. And meantime, Bruce's video is stunning. It's something that you want to invite your friends over to watch. You'll want to watch it 3 or 4 times. It's so full of great information, life transformation, life-transforming information, consciousness-transforming information. And it's empowering to know you have the answers right here to rewrite your own genes and to live life on your own terms. That video of Bruce's is available at 800-243-1438. So stay tuned for more with Bruce Lipton and Laura Lee.
Especially if it becomes redundant talk that repeats itself over and over and over again, will materialize that result, because we are like then Dustin Hoffman doing Willy Loman every day, saying the same words,
and the body will conform to failure.
And this is internal talk. And who are you talking to? Well, you say I'm clearing stuff through my mind. Yeah, but your mind is connected to every one of your cells. So that this talk that we don't pay any attention to is ultimate.
I'm a sick, dejected failure, and then your body says, okay, sick, dejected failures, are in a lot of pain, and they're sick, and they're dying.
And guess what? And what they'll do is make sure that as you're almost trying to succeed, you will make a mistake. Why? Because you have to. Come and drive. Now you're going 42 and 40. You don't pay attention to that. You have thoughts going on.
Yeah.
Now just so that people recognize that this is going on in everybody's head all the time.
Okay.
And the issue about this is, so what are the dialogues of these thoughts? And the reason is because
the universe, is that rewriting your genes? How do you do it?
The first thing is you have to start being aware of your consciousness. And this is the stuff that goes on in your head, and you're talking to yourself at the stoplight while the car is waiting, and you have to be there. Or even while you're driving down the street, you're not paying attention. Okay, now